A lot of talk out there right now about racism. Who is a racist? Who isn't a racist? What is racism? Let's talk about it. Greetings, back again. So, still a lot of stuff going on in the news. Just never seems to let up, does it? Big thing now is we've gone from one situation into an entirely different situation. And let me be specific. Let's go back to the George Floyd incident in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Police officer kills a black man. Now, at that time, and I know you remember this, I remember seeing it on my Facebook page. I remember hearing people talking about it. And this is especially for you liberals and you BLM and Antifa people who might see this. At that point in time, I couldn't find anybody, black or white, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, no one who disagreed with the fact that those cops were wrong. They murdered that guy. They needed to be arrested and they needed to be prosecuted. For the first time in, I can't even think how long, most of America agreed on something. Black and white, didn't matter. We all agreed those cops screwed up and they needed to pay the price. But within a week, the whole thing got co-opted. It got taken over. It got snatched out of your hands by groups like Antifa and BLM. Now, Antifa, for those who have been under a rock for the past 5 or 6 years, means anti-fascist. Now, isn't it fascinating that the very people who complain about fascism and wanting to stamp out fascism are the very people who act like fascists? Don't take my word for it. Watch them. Watch their actions. Compare their actions to Mussolini's fascist in Italy, Hitler's fascist in Germany, fascists throughout history. It's not conservatives. It's not Republicans doing this crap. Now, I know you don't want to hear that. You don't like thinking about it, but there it is. BLM, Black Lives Matter. Okay. Black Lives Matter, white lives, red lives, whatever. I don't care. Lives matter. But we're told that we're supposed to respect the fact that, it's specifically in this case about black people. Well, I'm about human life. I'm about Americans. And if Americans are killing Americans, I don't care what color you are, you're wrong. It's stupid. It's unnecessary. And it's not helping fix anything. I'll believe Black Lives Matters really cares about black lives when I see them marching in Chicago or Baltimore or St. Louis or any number of other Democrat-run, predominantly black cities where blacks are killing each other every year, not white people. And I'm going to point this out in a few minutes. You're going to see some facts that you're not going to like to see because it's going to be counter to your worldview. But facts is facts. Excuse me. It's not white people riding into the city from out in the country with their Confederate flags hanging off the back of their pickup truck and shooting black people as they drive down the street. That's not what's happening. And when I see Black Lives Matter or any other organization standing up and marching in Chicago and other places and saying, stop it. Stop killing each other. We are our own worst enemy, Mr. and Mrs. Black America. You look at the crime statistics, you look at the numbers. The worst enemy of a black man in this country today is another black man. Now, I can hear you now. I can just hear you liberals out there, right? Oh, you are such a racist, Floyd. Am I really? Am I a racist just based merely on what I'm saying? Because what I'm saying is based in statistical, empirical fact. It's not Floyd's opinion. This is based on the numbers. So does that make me a racist? I know in your eyes it probably does, because you don't want to hear it. Because it conflicts with your worldview. It conflicts with what your TV talking head tells you to believe. But I'm going to show you in a few minutes. Mr. and Mrs. Black America, you are your own worst enemy when it comes to who is killing more black people in this country. It is not white Americans doing it. Now, that's not to say it doesn't happen. There are occasions when white people kill blacks or blacks kill whites. It's all wrong. It's all stupid. It's all unnecessary. It's not helping anybody. But it does happen. And yes, there is racism in this country. At no point in time have I ever denied that there is racism. Yes, it's there. I've seen it. I've been a victim of it. Oh, I know you're thinking, but black people can't be racist, Floyd. Yeah, bullshit. Yeah, they can. So don't even try that crap with me. Now, you can spout all this leftist drivel you want to. You can parrot what the TV tells you to say. But at some point in your life, you're going to have to grow up and accept that there are facts out there that are contrary to what you're being told. So let's start looking at some of this stuff, all right? Now, I'm going to be going to some different websites, and I want you to look and listen, okay? First, all right, is black versus white crime statistics. Now, this goes back to December of 2019. So this is just the end of last year. Obviously, they need to update numbers, and that takes a while to do. So we've got last year. All right, do blacks commit more violent crimes than whites? Now we get to break down the numbers of population. Blacks are 13.3% of the population. So let's look at the numbers. If we take a look at the numbers of violent crimes committed by blacks, we can see they committed 153,341 of the 408,873 violent crimes, which is 37% of the violent crimes. If blacks make up 13% of the population, they should only be committing 13% of the crimes. Instead, they are committing crimes almost 3 times as many, bad praying here. They are committing crimes almost 3 times the number that they should be. Is the U.S. criminal justice system guilty of systemic racism against blacks? The myth of white privilege says that the police and the court system in the United States is guilty of systemic racism and bias and unfairly arrests and prosecutes blacks. Fortunately, there is an easy way to prove this isn't true by looking at the population and crime records of another developed first world country that doesn't have any of the biases the U.S. system is accused of. And it goes into detail in England. You can read this yourself. I'll be sure to put the link in the comments section so you can look it up yourself. But again, you got to look at the numbers. If we look at the FBI statistics for violent crimes, we can see that whites committed 241,063 of the 408,873 violent crimes, which is 58% of the total. So 61% of the population is committing 58% of the violent crimes. Okay, who are they committing it against, though? Is it white people killing black people? Now, again, I'm going to keep pointing this out because you've got to stop at some point and think about this. This past weekend, Father's Day weekend in Chicago, I posted the article on my Facebook page about, 70 people were shot and wounded in Chicago. 1 teenager was killed. Think about that. 70 people in one weekend in one city. Now, was that white people doing that? Was it white people riding into the city of Chicago and shooting up black folks standing on a street corner minding their own business? Guys, I'm not making this stuff up. This is reality. And at some point, you're going to have to come to grips with reality. All right, let's look at some more statistics. This is Daily Wire. This is from 2016, so this is going back 4 years. 7 statistics you should know about black-on-black crime. Data shows that 93% of black homicide victims are killed by other blacks. All right, let's keep looking down a little bit here. According to Riley, blacks commit violent crimes at 7 to 10 times the rate that whites do. Now, you guys like to talk about statistics and per capita. All right, well, here you go. Per capita. Here are some statistics from the FBI. In 2013, the FBI has black criminals carrying out 38% of murders compared to 31.1% for whites. The offender's race was unknown in 29.1% of cases. Black crime is even more prevalent in the country's largest cities and counties. Well, thank you, Captain Obvious. There are almost 6,000 blacks killed by other blacks. There were almost 6,000 blacks killed by other blacks in 2015. I don't remember BLM marching for that. Do you? I don't remember Antifa in the streets rioting and looting and burning because black people were killing black people. Anybody else remember that? Can you find any examples for me? Post it in the comments. I'd like to see them. So, again, these are statistics. This is stuff you can try to run and hide from it if you want to. Maybe you don't believe the Daily Wire. Maybe you don't believe this particular article. Fine. Do some research. Look at the numbers. See if you can find someone somewhere who has statistics that differ from these. Because most of these are coming from the FBI crime statistics. So, unless the FBI is just making this stuff up, and I suppose that could happen, then you're not thinking about this very well. Now, another thing I want to address is I'm getting really tired. I'm getting really tired of people telling me that I'm a racist just because I disagree with them. Because there might be some people watching this video who don't appreciate strong language, I'm just going to say, screw you, okay? If I hate you or hate someone, it's because of something you did or said. Doesn't have a damn thing to do with your skin color. I've known plenty of people throughout my 63 years, black, white, red, yellow, I don't care what your skin color is. I've been friends with people, I've gotten along with people. I haven't had any problem with them because they act like decent human beings. Doesn't have anything to do with their skin color. It's how they act. And until you come to grips with that, nothing's ever going to change. Just because I disagree with you politically, or because I disagree with what BLM's real mission is, or what Antifa's real mission is, doesn't make me a racist. I know it does in your eyes, excuse me, but in reality, it just means I disagree with you. Because I look at things beyond the color. I'm not looking at the color of your skin. I'm looking at your actions. I'm listening to your words. And what do they mean? Now, if you can't understand that, if you can't differentiate between skin color and behavior, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you need to work on that. That's something you got to fix on your own. I also hear a lot of people say, well, you know, Trump this, Trump that, it's all because of Trump. Well, you know, we had racial unrest during the Obama years. Anybody remember that? I still hear liberals today, even some family members say, oh, Obama was a great president. Obama did this. Obama was so helpful. Was he really? Let's see what some other black Americans have to say. All right. Civil rights leader. Marxist philosophy of Black Lives Matter organization will harm our communities. Excuse me. Now, this goes to June 12th of 2020. And they're interviewing a black civil rights leader. His name is Niger Ennis. He's the national chairman of the Congress of Racial Equality. Racial equality. Now, who would have a problem with that? I don't. I'm all about equality. All Americans should be treated equal. The fact that they haven't been over the years, shame on those who've done it. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be striving to achieve that goal. And equality does not mean special treatment. It doesn't mean preferential treatment or different treatment based on your skin color. It means equal. And I'll be the first one to agree with you that we have not had equal application of the laws in this country. There are plenty of people, white and black, who should have been prosecuted for all kinds of crimes and haven't been. I mean, hell, just look at Washington, D.C. and all the poltroons in that city who get away with crimes and don't get prosecuted. Stuff that you and I would be in jail for the next 50 years. But because they're politicians and they're part of the elite class, you never see them getting prosecuted. Now, I want you to listen to this video for a few seconds, and we'll put my headphones on so I can hear it too. And this is Mr. Ennis speaking.
It's very important, and this is a very, very serious issue. What's going on in our country is extraordinarily serious. The protesters in the street, I want to disconnect, if we will, the protesters in the street. The overwhelming majority of them are decent Americans trying to do the black and white, in fact, more whites than blacks and Hispanics and Asians that are just trying to do the right thing. We all saw what happened to George Floyd, and we were all abhorred. I think in the beginning, there was like a poll taken within a few days of the video going viral, and 96% of Americans said what happened there was immoral, was wrong, and the cops should be prosecuted. Now, I distinguish those kids and others out there protesting. I distinguish Pat Mahomes, who is doing some extraordinary things, Michael Jordan, who's doing some extraordinary things. Their heart and their soul is in the right place. I detach that from the founders of the Black Lives Movement. One of the founders of the Black Lives Movement, who was just recently on Meet the Press, Alisa Garza, okay, and she doesn't hide this, Raymond. I'm not saying this about her. This is what she says about herself. This is what's on her own Wikipedia page. She says that she is a Marxist. If you look at her affiliations, they are all left-wing and Marxist. One of the other people that founded the organization has a picture that she proudly spreads throughout Facebook with Maduro in Venezuela. Okay, so the fact that these founders, the three, and by the way, I was just yesterday, this is total coincidence. Just yesterday, I'm listening to NPR because I like to hear all sides, all points of view to get my news. And I was listening to NPR, and they had a representative of Black Lives Matter. And they asked this young man, what is the difference between this extraordinary new civil rights movement, or what are the parallels with this extraordinary civil rights movement and the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s? And this young man said, listen, when you had the movement in the 1950s and 60s, they were male-dominated. Essentially, it was one leader, be it Malcolm X or be it Martin Luther King. It was a one person in leadership that the movement rallied around. This is different, and it's different fundamentally for two reasons. One, it's decentralized. There are a variety of different leaders. And two, a big difference is the fact that this was founded by feminist, they said feminist, queer women. 3 feminist, queer women. I didn't say that. He said that, and he said it proudly. And Raymond, if you just go to their own website, because everybody keeps saying, what do they want? What do they want? And we keep talking about defund the police. That's just the beginning. That's just the tip of the iceberg, Raymond.
Okay, so you get some idea here. And again, I'll list all these links with the video, so you can go listen to it in length for yourself. But does that sound like they're really concerned about black lives? Or is it more of a political movement? We're Marxists. Well, what the hell does Marxism have to do with Black Lives Matter? Well, you got to be a communist to care about black lives? Really? When did that happen? Another argument I keep hearing is, well, we need to, the white man is still keeping the black man down. Systemic racism. We put up all these obstacles to keep black people from succeeding. Really? I've been white my entire life, and I've missed all those meetings. Nobody sent me a memo. So who are these white people creating this systemic racism that's only white on black? Of course, there is no black on white racism, right? We know that can't happen. All right, so do black people have a chance in this country? Can they be successful? Let's look at some examples. Again, I'll take you back to, let's look at some of these 20 successful companies founded or owned by black entrepreneurs. And then, I'm not going to go through the entire list. We'll just give you some examples here. And again, you can look it up yourself. Worldwide Technology. Now, that guy looks black to me. What do you think? If we're talking successful black-owned businesses, it makes sense to start with the IT behemoth, Worldwide Technology. With more than $10 billion in annual revenue and over 5,000 employees, WWT is one of the largest private companies in the U.S. Well, white America, we really screwed up on this one, huh? How'd we let this one get by us? Do you see how stupid you people sound? Jesus. Here's a black man running a $10 billion a year company. 5,000 employees. Well, if white men are keeping the black man down, if systemic racism is keeping black people from succeeding, how do you explain this? What did he do different? Who does he know? North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company. This was formed back in the 1890s. And it's still around, still being very successful. And this was at a time when we had Jim Crow laws. When this was created, and it's still around today. So if systemic racism isn't around today, and I suggest that it's not, it certainly was then, and this guy was still able to make a pretty successful business. Blavity. Again, I'm not going to read all this. It would take too long, but you can see the names. You can look them up. Dangote Group. Never heard of that one, but there it is. $4 billion in annual revenue. Employs 30,000 people. Gardner Rich and Company. Millennium Steel Service. I mean, come on, guys. Wake up. Oprah Winfrey. Oh, my God. The richest black person in America. Well, if black people are only 13% of the population, did she get this filthy, stinking rich just because black people supported her? Or maybe were there some white folks helping out along the way? How did she get past that obstacle? How did she slip past the white racism? All right, so you see, I mean, come on, guys. Look at all these companies. Wake up. 10 of the most successful black businessmen in the country. Oprah Winfrey, there she is. Again, if white racism is so prevalent, if all these obstacles are in the way keeping black people from being successful, how do you explain this? Could it be, now just bear with me, think about what I'm saying here. Could it be that those black men and women in this country who are successful, who have made the most of what America has to offer, could it be because they made good choices? Could it be because they didn't just sit back on their ass and wait for the government or some program or some group to come along and give them something? Maybe It's because they got out and worked their asses off to be successful, as any American can do, white or black. Come on. There's a neighborhood near me, excuse me, in Chesterfield County called Halsley. Some of you may know it. Those of you who don't live around here obviously don't. But let's just say that the homes in that place start around $750,000. We're talking nice homes. And there are a lot of black people living over there. I know one couple because I worked with the lady at school who lives over there. Now, how can a black couple live in a rich neighborhood like that if there are so many obstacles to their success? How did they slip by the racism? And that's just one example. In the neighborhood I live in, I've got black neighbors all around me. Couple of mixed race couples. How did they get past the racist obstacles to live in this neighborhood? This would be considered an upper middle class neighborhood. Did they find some way around it? Did they cheat? Were they sneaky? Did they have any help? Or maybe they just made good choices in their life and they worked hard to get where they are. Do you think that could be possible? All right, let's look at some more here. Damon John, multi-millionaire marketing mogul and ABC Shark Tank investor. Multi-millionaire. But he's black. How do we explain this? And he's not a rapper, and he's not a basketball or a football player. So how did he get where he is? It's not because he can slam dunk a basketball or shoot a three-pointer. It's not because he can run a 4.40. What did he do different? How did he get past the obstacles? If there are so many and they're so big, what did he do? Who does he know? Michael Jordan. Well, I'm not going to talk about Michael Jordan. He was an athlete. I'm not going to include athletes in this. Robert L. Johnson and Sheila Johnson, founder of Black Entertainment Television. All right. Well, good for them. Yeah, good for them. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole thing about, well, if we had a white entertainment television, would that be okay? But they found a niche. They moved on it. They worked hard, and look where they are now. Good for them. I don't have a problem with it. Do you? One more. Janice Bryant Howroyd. I hope I'm saying that right. The founder and CEO of Act One Group, an employment agency and consultancy, is the first African-American woman to operate a company that brings in upwards of $1 billion in annual revenue. African-American woman. How did she get past the obstacles? She's got two whammies against her. She's black and she's a woman. And we all know America's a racist, sexist, misogynistic society, right? So how did she get where she is? You know, you guys got to stop and explain this stuff to us. Us ignorant white folks who don't seem to understand how this happens. Rather than just throwing the word racist at us because we ask questions like this or we don't agree with everything you advocate, why don't you try to explain some of this stuff to us? Help us to understand. Okay, so another one of the arguments I hear is that Trump is a huge, awful racist. All of this social and racial unrest that we're going through right now, it's all Donald Trump's fault. None of this stuff ever happened before Donald Trump. And I hear people say, I still hear people say, oh, Obama was a great president. Stuff like this didn't happen under Obama. Really? Do I need to go back and find all the videos of the riots and the racial and social strife that took place under Obama? But of course, that wasn't Obama's fault, was it? No, that was, well, it wasn't Donald Trump's fault yet, was it? Because he wasn't president yet. Gosh, who do we blame it on? Because I know you like to place blame, you like to point fingers and say it's that person's fault. You don't want to look at yourself and ask yourself, what have I done to contribute? Have I done something that would help make it better? Or have I done something to make it worse? Now, we wouldn't want to be self-introspective, would we? All right, so just as an example, let me get my headphones on again. Here's a gentleman. Now, you can look at the picture here and you can see he's black, okay, African American, however you want to word it. Unapologetically African. That's what it says on his shirt. Now, we can argue about different things here. I don't know that he's ever been to Africa. Maybe he has. So, you know, my ancestry is Scottish. I guess I could say I'm unapologetically Scottish. But the fact is, I've never been to Scotland, born here in America. I'm an American. I happen to be white. I really had nothing to do with that. It wasn't my choice. I just turned out that way. So, anyway, that's just a little side note from mine. But let's listen to what he has to say about Barack Obama and whether or not he helped the black community during his 8 years.
We were bred like cattle, you know, in terms to try to create the biggest slaves and so forth. To go from that to actually say, here's someone who actually did a job and even got reelected. You can't say that's not a role model.
I would say he's not a role model. A role model is someone whom you would like other African-American boys to aspire to be. When you look at President Barack Obama's political behavior in the White House towards African-Americans, I cannot in good conscience want any African-American boy to emulate the neglect that their president has shown for African-Americans. In fact, when you look at the black reality, each index of black progress has actually regressed since Obama has been in the White House.
Okay, well, there you have it. Now, you may have noticed he's an African American. He's black. He's a scholar, according to him. I'll be honest with you, I don't know who Umar Johnson is. Never heard of him before. But here he is. Here's a black man stating that Obama did nothing for the black man. You want to argue with him? You want to tell him he's wrong? You can go to his page. I'm sure you can find Dr. Umar Johnson on Facebook somewhere. Tell him how he's wrong. You going to call him a racist? Oh, no. He's black. So you're going to call him an Uncle Tom, aren't you? Yeah, he's a house Negro because he disagrees with you. Because he doesn't buy into the garbage that you buy into. But rather than listen to what he says, rather than explore what he says to find out the truth of it, it's easier just to call him names, right? All right, now, lest you think that all I ever do is knock Obama, he's actually done and said some things I agree with. See, unlike you, I don't pick sides based on political parties. I pick sides based on words and actions. If what you say makes sense to me and it's helpful, I'm okay. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, whoever the hell you are. If it makes sense, it makes sense. Well, let's listen to this from Barack Obama and tell me if you feel like today this is what we see happening in the black community. I know we see it in some households, but I'm talking about at large. Rather than asking the government to help or looking to some government program, what are you doing at home to make things better?
You're providing guidance for our children, turning off the TV set, putting away the video games, attending those parent-teacher conferences, helping our children with their homework, setting a good example. That's what everybody's got to do if we're going to be moving this country forward. Teaching our daughters to never allow images on television to tell them what they're worth. Teaching our sons to treat women with respect and to realize responsibility does not end at conception. That what makes them a man is not the ability to have a child, but to raise one. That's a message we need to send. We have to do our part to lift up this country. That's where change begins. And after all, that's the true genius of America. Not that America is perfect, but that America will be perfect. Not that we are perfect, that we can make ourselves more perfect, that brick by brick, callous hand by callous hand, people who love this country can change it. That's our most enduring responsibility, the responsibility to future generations.
Wow. I can't find anything in there I disagree with. Yeah, I know it was Obama that said it, and I know he's a black man. Well, mixed race, but he prefers to be called black. Anyway, I get it. I don't see anything in there I disagree with. But let me ask you, at the risk of once again being labeled a racist, do you see that happening today in the black community? Again, I know there are individual cases where that's happening. I've seen them myself. But overall, you still have 75% or better of black children being raised in a single parent family. Usually the mother, because the father, as he so quickly noted in this video, is usually not in the picture. They don't mind making the babies, but then they don't want to stick around to raise the babies. Well, is that white racism causing that? If it is, then please explain it to me. How does the obstacles put in place by white people and systemic white racism causing that? Black Lives Matter? When are you going to demand that black men raise their children? Is it racist to suggest that? If so, why? Tell me in the comments section. Why is it racist to expect a man, black or any race, to make a baby and then take care of the baby instead of running off and making more babies somewhere else? How's that helping the black community? And how is that white racism? You guys got to think about this stuff. I know you don't want to because it conflicts with the worldview that you get from your TV set, but this is reality. And at some point, you're going to have to deal with it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up by stating that the reason all of this began, we go back to the George Floyd incident, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And at that time, like I said earlier, the majority of the country agreed. Those cops screwed up. And the call went out for police reform. Well, this may come as a shock to some of you, but I, Mr. White Man, have been calling for police reform for many years now. In fact, a lot of people I know, black and white, have been calling for police reform. And recently, a congressman named Justin Amash introduced the idea of police reform. And these are things that need to be done. But this has gotten lost, you see, because Antifa and BLM comes in with their separate agendas, and they hijack the whole police reform thing. Oh, yeah, they're talking about defunding the police, and that certainly does need to happen, and I'll explain why. But they want to just get rid of police. I mean, look at, was it Chaz or CHOP, whatever they're calling it now in Seattle. They don't have police in there. And read and watch the videos about what's going on in that little place. Yeah, maybe you'll change your mind. But one of the things he talks about is qualified immunity. Get rid of it. One of the problems is when a police officer commits abuse, when he overreaches and somebody sues the police department, it's not the police officer who's paying for it. It's the taxpayer. Now, you may win the lawsuit and you may get a lot of money, but it ain't the cop that's paying for it. It's your local tax base that's paying for it. Well, you get rid of qualified immunity, make the police have to buy their own insurance, and then when they get sued, it's them that are getting sued, not the department, not the city, but them, the individual police officer. See how quickly this crap changes. Another thing, demilitarize the police. The police are just that, the police. They're not the army. They don't need tanks. They shouldn't have tanks. They don't need all this other high-tech military stuff that they seem to get, surplus military stuff they get all the time. That's not what the police are supposed to be for. All right? Demilitarize the police. End asset forfeiture. Stop policing for profit. cut this crap out where if I pull a guy over, he just went to the bank and withdrew $5,000 because he's going to an antique show and he wants to buy a furniture set that costs $5,000, but they don't take credit cards. So he goes and gets $5,000 in cash out of the bank. He's driving. He gets pulled over. Taillights busted. Maybe he's speeding. Whatever. They notice $5,000 in cash. They seize the cash because that could be money from drugs. They can't charge him. No drugs in the car. In fact, in many of these cases, they don't charge him. But they keep the money and good luck trying to get it back. Now, you tell me how that's constitutional. That crap needs to stop, and I've been saying that for years now. Got nothing to do with skin color, white, black, racism, whatever it is. It's just got to do with the Constitution and what's right and what's fair. You don't take people's property just because you want it. I don't care if you're wearing a badge or not. If I did that, if I took your $5,000, I'd be robbing you. When the police do it, it's called asset forfeiture. Sounds nice, doesn't it? It's got the color of law to it. It's still wrong. It's still unconstitutional. But they get away with it. Change it. Stop it. There are other things that need to be fixed. But those three right there, if you just did those three today, watch how quickly things would change. All right, so, I think I've covered as much as I can cover for right now. Otherwise, I'll make a 2-hour-long video. The bottom line is this. You don't like it when people paint with a broad brush when it concerns you. Well, neither do I. If you're going to start labeling everyone who disagrees with you a racist, not because of anything they've actually done that is racist, not because of anything they've actually said that is racist, but just because they disagree with you politically, then you're an idiot. And you're part of the problem, and that's why nothing's ever going to get fixed. Because you don't want to look at the truth. You just want to call people names. You want to believe the talking heads on your TV. You want to believe the hate-filled, and I mean it, hate-filled activists who themselves don't want to look at the truth or the facts or the statistics, and just call anybody you disagree with a racist. And then that shuts them down because they don't want to be called a racist. And nothing gets fixed because we can't have that open dialogue that you keep saying you want. Well, let me make it clear. I'm not a racist. I don't hate anybody because of the color of their skin. I've said this before. If I hate you, it's because of something you did or something you said. All right? Number two, you can call me a racist all you want. I know better. And people who know me know better. So I'm not going to fall for that crap. You want to call me a racist? Go ahead and call me a racist. I'm still going to talk facts. I'm still going to challenge you to think and look at what's going on in this country and ask yourself, what role have you played in A, making it worse, or B, making it better? Because at some point you're going to have to be self-introspective and ask yourself, what have I done? All right? These things need to be looked at. You need to think about it. You want to have an open dialogue? I'd love to have an open dialogue with you. But that means I'm going to ask questions that you may not want to hear. And I'm going to point things out to you. I'm going to point out the double standards and the hypocrisy, things that you may not want to think about. But that's what an open dialogue is. And if you can't handle it, stop asking for it. It's time to fix things, not make it worse. Y'all have a good day.